Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Rocket MSP podcast, now powered by Channel Program. I'm Steve Taylor, your host. Today I'm joined by Tara Wheeler from Red Queen. Is it Red Queen or Red Queen Dynamics?
Folk call it both. We're technically Red Queen Dynamics, but at this point, I think we're heading with Red Queen.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So, my understanding is that you are like a cybersecurity compliance platform. Would
Mhm.
that be the best way to describe it?
It's a really good way to put it. I think of us as a pain in the ass reduction mechanism, is the best way to put it for compliance issues that MSPs have with their small businesses. So the number one thing I think we do is reduce the PETA factor when it comes to asking people questions, managing and maintaining records, and being really the difference between problematic and delightful to use for just Janice and accounting at a small business. Yeah.
All right. So why don't we describe what it does in a way that gets MSPs excited because now they actually know what it does. Because your description's fun, but I still don't know that it explains what it does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Okay, so here's what we do. I'm not going to go into the whole origin story. If I was going to try to do that, I'd be trying to echo something like Kick-Ass as opposed to the Marvel universe, and you don't want to hear about the bumps and bruises early. So instead, I'll just say that that as somebody who's been an MSP, who's been a services provider before a lot, and who grew up in that world, one of the challenges that I and my team saw was that MSPs have a bunch of clients that are in various stages of gruntlement with their IT and with their compliance. And one of the big pressures that falls onto MSPs is dealing with checklists, attestations, proofs of compliance for cyber insurance applications, and their policy renewals, as well as vendor assessments, and just figuring out sort of what's the state of security in those small businesses. So as somebody who spent a lot of time in security, what I know is that even though you can orchestrate a bunch of stuff, there's still that last moment, the last 16 inches between me and my keyboard, where you still have to have a human being attesting to things like, yes, I have taken the security training, and yes, I understand that I'm not supposed to plug a USB drive in my work computer, right? So what we wanted to do was make that a lot easier. We took a lot of our experience in information security, compliance, and cognitive behavioral theory, and what we've created is a system that is very light touch and ongoing for small businesses to report their security stance to their MSP. How it works is this, and I'll go through and show the demo and everything in a bit too, if you like. But how it works is like this. And MSP says, I want to have one of my small businesses get aboard Red Queen. So they provide the emails of the folks in that business, and we send out introduction and welcome emails to those folks. They get a quick account set up via magic link, and then they're brought into our web app where they answer some diagnostic questions and some framework questions. Some of the diagnostic questions might be something like, are you a person that people turn to for help with information security? Do you sign invoices on behalf of your company? Are you somebody who is often seen as a more technical person or the information security person in your company? Those kinds of questions sort people out a bit so that the next questions that they get asked are relevant to who they are in the business. Smaller number of questions for kind of average users, and a slightly greater number of questions for people who are high trust or technical in a business. Now, the questions that we ask for frameworks like NIST CSF or the CMMC or the Ballard Agency's cyber insurance checklist that lets you get cyber insurance far faster, that kind of stuff through our platform. The kind of questions we ask for somebody who's identified in those diagnostic questions as a non-technical user might start with what I have discovered is the single most powerful question you can ask any person, which is your home and work email password different? And that question, I mean, just pours one out, right? Because that
Hmm.
question exposes so much about what's going on inside small businesses. And we ask, 5, 6 of those questions up front, which begins the process of across multiple of the frameworks that we service, starting to fill out that little organization's compliance status. These are also the kinds of questions that you get asked when you are filling out cyber insurance policies, trying to get into like the FANG vendor, system, stuff like that, when you're trying to sell to larger businesses, or in the case of the CMMC, and we're now serving CMMC level 1 sort of self-certification. If you want to sell to the federal government, to the Department of Defense, this is what lets you get into that supply chain. So that's how this whole thing works. Now, MSPs, of course, can see what's happening, not just diving deep into one of their organizations, but across a client dashboard of all of their small businesses and go, hey, I can see what some issues are starting to be. We pop up suggestions based on those questions. And if a bunch of people are reporting that they're plugging personal devices into work laptops or phones and stuff like that, we report that in the form of a suggestion to the MSP for a highly targeted and valuable remediation that is not a bullshit remediation, but a real and meaningful remediation that's also kind of your cheat sheet for your QSR or QBR, right? This is a printout of everything that's going on in that organization, and it lets you take a look at it and go, awesome, I already know what to talk about with these folks on that next quarterly review. Let's talk about a targeted sales engagement, maybe getting everybody there on like our affiliate program for 1Password if they're reporting password problems and shenanigans. So that's how this whole thing works. And over time, we operate much like QuickBooks for small business compliance. Nobody calls Intuit for tax help, right? You call your accountant and you're like, you're the person I have this relationship with. Make my taxes go, make tax go burn. And the accountant says, great. I've sent you some stuff in QuickBooks, make sure you're recording, you got everything plugged into this. Let's take a look at what your P&Ls look like. This is the process for keeping continuous track of how you're doing in compliance, just like you would use QuickBooks for your financials.
All right. This sounds really cool so far. I want to see it.
Oh my God, yeah. Hey, you want to see something cool?
Yeah.
Let me actually show you right now. I'm going to show you our actual, like our personal Red Queens compliance status. This is us right now.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and share a screen with you. So we're going to select a window or a screen and allow ScreenYard. Yeah, this better be the right one. Hang on one second. Let's see if we got that shut down. Okay, so this should be the right one. It doesn't actually show in StreamYard. That's okay. We'll figure it out. Allow. Which one am I sharing? I can't see. Are you able to see, Steve?
I don't see anything yet.
Okay, I'm going to stop that share and try again. So I'm here. I'm going to go into share screen in StreamYard. Just pop that open, and I'm not able to see what.
Are you a
what
Mac
screens.
or a PC?
I'm on a Mac, and I've done this before in our StreamYard, so hopefully.
Interesting. So the permissions should all be set up then.
So I'm going to present down at the bottom, clicking on share screen. And I don't get any pop-up or anything that lets me share my screen. However, the nice part about this, folks, is that we're actually all set up with the full demo reel on the front page of our website. So happy to point people there if anybody wants to kind of pop that open in the background if this setup doesn't work. Your dealer's choice, Steve. What do you want to do?
Let me pull up your website.
Sure. You just scroll on down to the MSP experience. And in the meantime, what I'll tell you folks, as Steve is looking at that, is one of the reasons that we're inspired to do this work. I'm just sitting here thinking about some of the cyber insurance application forms that I've filled out, that I've helped fill out on behalf of other agencies and companies. And I'm here to tell you that cyber insurance applications they're horrifying. And I remember 2 years ago when I got our cyber insurance. I got a cyber insurance because I wanted to. So, because I'm weird that way. And I remember the question about encryption and passwords on that form. And the passwords question to make sure I was in compliance was, do you have everyone in your organization change their password every 30 days? And that was how I discovered that form validation wasn't working, because I typed in, instead of the radio button there, or instead of the checkbox there, I typed in no, because this is a bullshit question. And they gave me $2 million of ransomware insurance. Probably because, it's a crazy question. These question rules are insane. But yeah, Steve, let's go back to like why I love all this. But yeah, if you've got that there, So if you're looking at that front page, this is a story lane demo. You can take a look at the front there and go ahead and click on that little button right there and hopefully pop it up. Yeah. So this as an MSP is what you see when you look at your client's dashboard. You see all of your clients, and like there's actually quite a few more features here that aren't showing up because we've actually just gotten a bunch more stuff implemented. But what I'll do is I'll show you that over time, as you complete your compliance checklists, these donuts, your pie chart donuts, get thicker, so you can get a really good picture of what's going on with each one of the organizations that you're working with. So yeah, this is an individual one. Beautiful Soup Restaurant Supply. You probably saw Walrus and Carpenter Heavy Industries, and maybe March Hair, HAIR Salon and Spa. I'm particularly proud of that one. We clearly have a theme, and that pun was my fault. I'm going to take credit for it. So the frameworks that we currently have operational are the NIST CSF Cybersecurity Framework, the Global Cyber Alliance's Small Business Toolkit, the Beasley Cyber Insurance Universal Questionnaire that's available publicly online, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Level 1 from the Department of Defense, and the Ballard Agency's Cyber Insurance Onboarding Checklist. That's a business insurance agency up here in the Northwest. They've got clients all over the United States, a wonderful company, and they were looking for a way to help get some of their small business clients, not only through the 16-week process to get cyber insurance faster, but also to show them how they could be continuously compliant over time. So what we did is we implemented their checklist, which again, just a crosswalk of the questions that exist in all the other frameworks that exist out there. And now we're able to send our MSPs the ability, any of our MSP clients can take any of their small business clients asking for cyber insurance who are green and good to go on that checklist, straight to the Ballard Agency, and they get popped to the top of the list for processing, moving their processing time from, it could be 16 to 18 weeks at this point, down to we're finding about a week to 2 weeks.
That's
It's
pretty impressive.
hard. Thank you. Honestly, Steve, thank you. As a secure, just like stepping back for a second, I've done a bunch of shit in this field, and as a security professional, I have walked the vendor hall at RSA and Black Hat a lot, and there's a bunch of shiny toys out there. But I also grew up. My stepdad still owns and runs the MSP that I started working for after high school when I was 16, and full time for when I dropped out of high school the first couple times. And the problems that need to get solved, where very literally the rubber meets the road. A couple of our clients are shipping and logistics companies, have to do with making this easier for people to just function, right? And if you're a small business and you've got an MSP, your problems aren't, am I abiding by the CMMC? Your problem is, can I propose to this government contract, to this bid? Can I sell to Amazon, right? And the answer to those questions is something that only your MSP can tell you if it's about complicated stuff in IT and cybersecurity. And so that's the problem we're trying to solve, is adding some ball bearings and WD-40 to the process of revenue enablement for small businesses so that MSPs can make that work. Yeah. If you want to keep going, yeah. Oh, so these are some of the top tips that you're going to get. I can tell you right now, what do we have? That's that password manager tip, that second one. That means that some of the folks are using the same password. They've answered the question that they're using the same password in different places. So this right here is a clarion call for that MSP to go, hey, I see right now in your next QSR or QBR, let's talk about our affiliate program with LastPass or 1Password, or our management of that process for you folks. So we set this up meaningfully for MSPs to use as a revenue enablement device for MSPs as much as it is for SMBs, because this is a real opportunity to decrease touch time on the dumb shit and really increase it on the important things like keeping people safe. If you want to pop down a little further, you'll see the experience for what one of your small businesses might actually see. So if you take a look here, we often think about Janice in accounting when we think about whether or not this is a delightful thing to use. And if you want to just hit that right there, what you're going to see is this is part of the onboarding process. Hold here for a second, Steve. This is part of the onboarding process for your clients. I was talking to a guy 2 days ago. Today is Wednesday, right? I lose track at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a guy 2 days ago, and he runs an MSP that serves healthcare providers. And he was just fully over it. He was exhausted, right? Like end of the day, I know my last meeting of the day, I was his last meeting of the day, bless my heart. And he was just tired at the end of the day. He's like, man, I don't have the bandwidth for this. I can't go into another client. I can't send somebody there on site, get a whole install set up, get everybody trained on a new thing. And I was like, brother, it's cool. Calm down. You don't have to do anything other than give me a list of the email addresses in this small business. That's it. And he was like, I don't believe you. And I was like, I understand that you don't believe me. We have made terrible software for so long for compliance that nobody believes me anymore when I tell them you literally have, that's it. That's all you got to do. But this is what happens when somebody who's an MSP says, great, we're going to onboard XYZ shipping. This is the experience of Janison Accounting inside XYZ shipping. Or who do we have down there? Somebody, I think it's we call this is Janison Accounting, but everybody gets a single question. So yeah, let's click on this one more time. So stop for a second there. Yeah. So hold 1 second here. So what happens is we send a white labeled, if you want, email to the folks inside that small business that just says, hey, let's get you set up. They're going to go through those diagnostic questions and a few questions just like this one. Like Janison Accounting reading this has to answer this question. She has to, right? You have to, on an individual basis, to stay up to date in your compliance frameworks. This requires human attestation in the same way that you can orchestrate a bunch of stuff in security, but you still can't have a computer sign contracts for you, right? This is a contractual representation of somebody who's saying, yes, I do the thing I'm supposed to be doing. This is the compliance training we all got to do with videos and crap like that too. Mm-hmm. This is a question for Janice that just says, hey, is your password different for your home and work email? Now, she can answer that. Yes, those accounts have different passwords. No, I don't have a work email, just a personal. I don't have a personal. I use my work for everything. Like this tells us some stuff. And it tells us different things on individual frameworks, but the questions are pretty much all the same. And if she wants to, or she doesn't understand the question, she can hit a drop down there to fill in something or ask a question, which is going to lead to a complex answer later. So you can go ahead and click the next thing if you want to, Steve. All right, so you can, yeah, this is exactly it. This shows you what's going on, not only at any moment in time, but just over time with your client's security setup. All right, click that next button. Yeah, this gives you the drop down. I'm explaining like kind of how and why it works and already did, but it's pretty much genuinely this simple, right? Go ahead and click the next button. And the next thing that you get at the end of that for Janice, and this is the experience on a weekly basis, is just one of these. A little snippet of resources, just saying, hey, this is, if you want to look more into this, you can. On that passwords question, I think we have Correct Horse Battery Staple, the classic XKCD comic, in case people want to understand a little more about it. You know, CISA recommendations on password strength, some good options that exist out there, like SANS Top 20. If they want to dig into it, they can. And if they don't have to. You can hit the next now. Yeah, that's literally it. For Janison Accounting, in that small business, that's the end of all of the pain of somebody from an MSP or somebody inside that SMB having to call everybody and maintain a highly orchestrated Excel spreadsheet that demonstrates that. Honestly, I've got people that just don't believe me at this point in time about how easy it is, because MSP software, I think, has been so clunky and so problematic to do this. Also, like the big compliance engines, they think like Vanta and Drata, they're dealing with big enterprises, right? I think Drata and Vanta just celebrate having 7,000 clients, right? They're dealing with enterprises at that very top level. There are staffs of people inside those companies whose job it is to operate that software. It's like having SAP or Concur or something like that. At the point at which you need those things, you got to hire like 3 people to run this software for you and like go to Concur University or whatever it is. There's nothing like that here, because the goal is to make it so that MSPs have this continuing understanding about how they're doing with their clients and across all their clients. So we do per person, per seat pricing. You can take a look at our at redqueendynamics.com, literally hit the get started button and try a 90-day trial for free. We also tell every MSP, try us first internally. Literally just sign up. I'm going to give this to you for free forever. If you've got some small business clients signed up eventually, we're going to let you have this internally for free. You should be using this because there's a cobbler's children have no shoes problem in MSPs with security, right? Like I've asked a lot of MSPs, do you have your own NIST CSF? You're supposed to have that. You're busy certifying people for CMMC right now. Do you have your own? And they're like, don't tell anybody. And I was like, it's cool. Sign up here. You're going to be on your way there in a couple weeks. So what questions do you have?
Man, I don't even know where to begin. My mind is
Mm.
racing. I have to say, it is refreshing to have you on here because you're the real deal. I can tell that you're a very technical person, and that terrifies me because I'm less and less technical these days. um, so I guess where I want to start is you are not, for lack of better term, you're not a cybersecurity company in the traditional sense. You're not doing like EDR, MDR. There's no agents installed on endpoints. This is a compliance focused company, correct?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. So is everything that you do around like questionnaires, checklists, that type of stuff?
So up front, what folks, especially in that small business, are going to see is really focused around those checklists. And we obviously have some integrations. Like we've got a couple of interesting things coming up. Many cyber insurance companies want to have like occasional scans, just Mozilla Observatory shit, right? So
Mhm.
we do have integrations. We do use threat intelligence behind the scenes. The reasons MSPs are getting the insights they're getting is there's not only a combination of machine learning. I've created a risk targeting algorithm that looks at not only what questions are most non-compliant in an organization, but which ones are most likely to be impactful for that organization. Like you're going to get more tips and tricks about spear phishing trainings for your clients if you've got a bunch of accounting firms. Why? Because invoice fraud is the big deal for those kinds of companies. So is there a bunch of tech happening in the background? Yes, it's not exposed to the end user. It's there operating to keep clients safe and keep MSPs safe. But part of the reason why we don't do a bunch of MDR and EDR, like XDR at this point, right? Whatever the nifty acronyms are today. The reason we don't do that is because kinds of MSPs we're serving are part of the market that are serving micro and small businesses that often don't have endpoints for everyone or don't have a work device issued for those companies. We're working with companies with MSPs that serve places like dental offices, chiropractors offices. They don't have, some of them have HIPAA, some of them don't have HIPAA, but many of them, they've got 15 people that work at this little shop in the middle of Idaho, but there's only 4 email addresses for this little dentist office. There's the dentist, there's the office manager, and there's the info and appointment scheduling email, and a bunch of people share it. To us, that equals 4 endpoints, right? But at the same time, if email is an endpoint for us as opposed to a machine is an endpoint for us, and there's a lot of depth in that because honestly, the guys that are part of this, there's a client's client who's part of a shipping company. There's 15 guys who do moves and storm recovery in Florida, in Tampa, Florida. And this is a company that specializes in moving office equipment, prepping for hurricanes and problems like that. So they'll move like bank and tech companies stuff out of the way, or they'll lock the place down or move stuff from office to office. Guess what happens when you try to get paid by a bank now? You've got to go through a vendor assessment process that makes you fill out a bunch of data privacy stuff, a bunch of regulatory work, just so you can get paid. And I got this guy saying to his MSP, "I've got 15 guys in vans. Why are you making me ask them questions about whether or not they're logging into the company accounts with a strong password? This is not meaningful, and they don't even have company devices." So to get those guys paid, this is the only solution that we've seen so far that works, which is genuinely start with the person as the center of the issue and not a machine as the center of the issue. That's the difference between compliance in this case, I think.
And that honestly makes sense. I've always wondered why we're so like machine focused when it's not the machine's fault that here's a perfect example. This wasn't the machine's fault.
Hmm.
This was a person's fault.
Mhm.
Now, machines were used, events transpired, if mistakes were made, a very costly $25 million mistake. Have you heard about this?
Oh, have I ever? I think I've probably talked on 3 podcasts this week about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So needless to say, like, sure, machines were used, but like it's all people driven. And it's like everything today I'm finding is it all revolves around like manipulation, right? So, you're manipulated into clicking on a link. I'm now getting texts from pretend people who are saying they're Lancaster, the CEO of my company. So they're like, "Hey, I need you to do something for me," and I'm like,
Mm.
"Uh huh, go on." And I just got told like, "Stop replying because you're just increasing your value to because you're on a list somewhere." Like, I guess I don't think about this stuff that, like, the dark web, they've got their own CRMs and cost of acquisition and everything else. Like, they are managing a business just like we are. It's just not a legitimate business.
Yeah. Well, and this is the hard part about this because I'm going to be super blunt. I'm not talking to SMBs right now. I'm talking to MSPs. These are the
Yeah.
our clients, the people we sell to are MSPs. We don't sell to small businesses because I remember trying to do that like a year or so ago. I was like, does it hurt if an SMB wants to use us internally? First time I got a question back from the small business. Okay, great. Can you help us set up MFA? And I was like, nope, you're out. I can't develop those relationships with small businesses and do a good job creating this product that serves MSPs. And the reason why is, you as an MSP, you have a responsibility to your clients, but you also have to look at how you are creating and generating documentation. And for a situation like this, one of the first questions that this company is going to get asked if they have a cyber insurer is, um, did you train this employee on phishing? And the answer, without continuously checking on whether or not phishing training is being offered, whether or not resources are being offered, and asking that employee in a documented fashion on an ongoing basis, if phishing training had happened, this company has no way to prove that that happened. So what MSPs are able to do when, for instance, let's hope an SMB doesn't have an event, but if they do, BEC or something like that. A couple of our clients have been dealing with clients who came to them because they experienced just like hundreds of thousands of dollars in business email compromise. And one of the things that MSP is able to do with our platform, imagine after 6 months of this, you've asked everybody the relevant questions. They're doing great. They're above 90% compliance on all of the frameworks they want to be on, NIST, their vendor assessments, their CMMC, they're ready to go for everything. They experience BEC, and their cyber insurer says, how do we know that you folks had MFA everywhere? And the answer is, not only is the MSP able to say, look, we installed and we're managing MFA on every one of these endpoints. But I want you to see here, every single one of these employees has personally confirmed that they had MFA on all of their devices, except for Joe. Joe says he turned MFA off on his work device because it was annoying him. And we've isolated the situation down to Joe in that device. Now, in this situation, that's the documentation that demonstrates that, first of all, that an MSP can find those problems before they happen. But second, for a small business, that's an existential event. And determining that there is, or you find out that MFA wasn't enabled on somebody's device and they said it was, you've determined where that problem lies. First, in advance of the problem, and second, in the event of an audit or a compromise, you've isolated it away from the entire company and down to the documentation the MSP is able to provide to the cyber insurer. And then you have a different conversation because it's not the entire company that screwed up, right?
Hmm.
You're experiencing where it happened. You've isolated the problem and you've done it hopefully far faster than a computer criminal can catch up with. So there's a lot of implications to that. I was also on a call with a guy maybe 4 or 5 days ago who was like, yeah, my small businesses don't want to know where there's a problem. They just want to check all the boxes. And I said, then I can't help you. Unless you are trying over time to fix these problems, and unless you've got a way to see what the problems are, and you just want to have everybody close their eyes, plug their nose, and whistle, and hope everything works out okay, we can't help you with that. This is bringing clarity to a murky situation, and if you don't want clarity, then don't use it. I don't want the pushback from somebody who's like, yeah, we didn't want to know that everybody had bad security practices. You should want to know before your client gets hit. That's the only way to fix it. So, and that's hard, honestly. But if
It
it's
is.
not the MSP doing it, it's going to be a criminal doing it or their cyber insurer after the fact doing it. That's what you don't want to have happen.
Okay. So a 90-day trial on your platform,
Mhm.
that's, I feel like, unheard of. I've never seen a trial that long. Why? I mean, don't get me
Ah,
wrong, I'm not complaining, but why is
yeah.
it so long?
Because I will not let you fill out your client's checklists by yourself all the way through or let them fill it all out all at once. This is why. The value of this platform is only demonstrated over time.
Hmm.
I want you to imagine that that a small business wants to fill out all of this paperwork instantaneously. So here's the problem. I think we all know at this point that MSPs have small businesses that want to fill out all their cyber insurance checklists, all their vendor assessment stuff. They want it filled out last Tuesday, right? So why do I not let everybody just go through and answer all of their questions at once? And the answer
Because
is
they
the
need to do
same.
the research, right?
They need to do the fixes. They need to do the fixes over time. It's the same reason that your doctor doesn't tell you, all right, you're cleared to start training for a marathon, and you don't walk out the door and run 26.1 miles in that moment. It's because you're not ready. And you also won't get it done, right? Like filling that checklist out, there's inherent sort of shutting your eyes, plugging your nose, and whistling as you try
Mhm.
to fill out that checklist. What you're trying to do with this checklist is the same thing you do with QuickBooks. Nobody on April 14th calls an accountant and says, I need my taxes done, and then uploads everything into QuickBooks, processes all their receipts and everything like that. The next day, the accountant says, okay, your taxes are submitted, and then they cancel their QuickBooks account. Right. And the reason you don't do that is because this is not just a process of keeping track of your compliance. It's a process of keeping a record of your continuous compliance. The second that you fill out a checklist, it is obsolete. The second it's done, it's obsolete. You still have to have somebody go back and look at what it was at a point in time. If you decide that you want to go and explore it further, or that there's an incident later, that might be the last record you have of any compliance for that organization. What we often find is that MSPs have that highly orchestrated Excel spreadsheet that they do their best to maintain over time. It's got like a date. The last time I asked these questions of this small business calls them and they go, okay, we're going to do our best to try to fill some of this stuff out. We're going to have to make calls to the organization. You know, it's going to be a premium price and an add-on because these are additional hours that we're spending on your account. And what this is a push button PDF of everything that's gone on in the same way that you print off a P&L. So the reason that I do a 90-day trial on this, first of all, is because I want MSPs to come aboard and to see within 30 to 45 days that they're never going to let this go, because now they have CMMC and NIST-CSF and their own ability to get cyber insurance and demonstrate continuous compliance over time. But then they get to look at it and go, instead of dealing with all of the BS checklists that I'm getting asked to fill out every single day, I can get my clients on this. um, we see two different approaches with price. They can either roll it out to everybody, and then there's pricing discounts obviously to do that, and then that's built into the flat fee that's given to that the small businesses, or they sell the seats as a VAR basically, and they sell it at usually about a 40% markup. We see that the no-brainer price for this for small businesses is about $10 a month a person. That's the moment they go, of course, why are you even bothering me with this? Sign us all up for it.
Mhm.
Um, and for MSPs, it's been between $4 and $6, depending on how many companies they bring aboard and how many seats. And obviously, for volumes, there's discounts that go below that. But what we're finding out is that what MSPs want this tool for is longitudinal, not point in time. So to do that, and to have them understand that their clients are going to get benefit, and to get them looking at this, um, we want people to see this a little longer. We also, and again, I want to repeat this, if you're an MSP and right now it's 5 of your businesses, if you're an MSP and after 90 days you have at least 5 of your small businesses signed up as customers, you get your seats free forever. So that's what that's for. It's intended to get MSPs aboard, because I'm going to tell you the truth. A lot of MSPs are like, I don't want to show our clients how to use this until we fix some of our own shit internally,
Mhm.
honestly, because they're about to find out that in a 15-person MSP, you know, there's half the team is non-technical, right? You got sales, you got reception, you got office management, you got, you know, finance. So half that team is non-technical, or they're, account reps. They're about to find out some stuff internally that they want to quietly fix, which is the idea of this. You get to show people that you've done better over time. You could see the crawling up green line for compliance on that front page. And also up at the top too, you can see that there's a guide for MSPs on our homepage. There's a guide for MSPs, or also you can just book a demo with one of us. There should be a demo booking. That's the MSP a guide right at the top. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, head back to you're there. You can scroll down a little and you'll just see really genuinely here. This is a PDF you can download. We're happy to go through and show folks stuff. Keep scrolling. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, there's your PDF report. And then so you got multiple clients at a glance here. This is what you're going to see if you're an MSP. You can dig down into everything. I haven't even gotten this updated. We've got compensating controls in place now as well too. But this is what we're able
What
to
kind of
show.
controls?
Compensating controls. So if you're inside a small business and you've answered and somebody's answered a question, yes, I use my personal device to do work on. That might be a contractor. It might be just that you can't afford to issue everybody devices. And so you're not going to fix that. But what do you do? You either set up a VM for them to access. You make sure they're on one password. You address the issue of them being able to access information on their personal device with whatever relevant security controls. Click on that non-compliant reply and add a compensating control, and then that turns to blue, not green, because it's not compliant, but it is a compensated control that you've addressed as a business owner. So that's how you over time get all the way there.
Thank you for explaining that one to me.
Sure. Yeah. So that begin free trial right there, like pop on in there if you want to, folks. More than happy to work with people. So this is what it looks like for managed service providers. And once you've gone through the setup, you'll also see for folks that want to come aboard, there's a scaled pricing link there that'll show you a few more things too. So we like to make sure people get a chance to book a demo. But if you go to redqueendynamics.com/scaled pricing, scaled-pricing, you'll see it. It's just a hidden link. All the fun stuff I was going to get. I'm so glad all this stuff is there now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and for organizations that have their whole client base on Red Queen, we have a 10% ongoing discount because it's easier for us to manage and maintain, and it incentivizes MSPs to get this set up as part of their onboarding process for their new clients. Is really what it does. It just makes it easier for everybody. It becomes less of a pain in the ass, and we are all about reduction in the PETA factor. Yeah,
I like it.
I'm glad.
Is there anything else that you think MSPs need to know about Red Queen?
Yes. This is an awesome team of engineers and designers and product folk that I am grateful to get to serve. I mean, some of these people have been, heads of security and product security at Brave and GitHub and, Committee to Protect Journalists. And they've been, the SREs at SolarWinds and Pandora. They've served major financial organizations, healthcare companies. Like you could take a look at that for, come connect with me on LinkedIn. I will talk with you about this forever. Here's the thing that really strikes me. Tilda Lillengram is our head of product, and they're an incredible head of product and a lead that just manages this all the way through. One of the things that is true of almost everybody, but especially really, I mean, Tilda's really articulated this. We are all security people in this company. We built this out because we saw a lack of security and a lack of ability to attain that at this level for MSPs and SMBs. But every one of us is thrilled to work as a team because this is not a job where people call us on the worst day of their lives. In information security, I've been an incident commander. I have been part of major corporate breaches. I have seen some shit, and everybody on my team has too. Just 1,000-yard stare stuff. People who are devastated, desperate, losing livelihoods. Threats against journalists, livelihoods, revenge porn, some of the worst things that you can do to people on the internet. And we've been there as the incident commander and responder on those days. And it is as if all of us were EMTs, and we, having seen what was going on every day to normal human beings, moved into public health. We know what the problems are now, and we know how to systemically address them. And we feel and hear and experience what happens with just regular people in small businesses and the devastating impacts of the kinds of attacks that we have seen every day. And it is so great to be able to offer something to MSPs to help them address these problems before they happen, before they've got to be the people that get that phone call on their small business's worst day, where they say everything's gone. It's gone down to the carpet and the Ethernet cables. The money's gone. The client database is gone. I don't have a company. Fix this. Help. What did we do? What happened? Right? And it's so cool to get to fix this in advance and see people just like light up and be thrilled that this is a thing that we're able to really address with them. Maybe that's the thing I would say is I love this job. It's been a lot of jobs I've had that I did not love. I love this job, and the people I work with, they're happy with their 9 to 5, fixing this shit in advance of when it happens to these folks that are not protected, and it's a good feeling, Steve. That's what I got to say. Yeah.
So I wanna talk. I know we talked a lot about Red Queen. I want to talk about Terra for a few minutes because you
Say less.
have you have the most interesting background, and I meant to talk about this first because I was serious when I said like I can tell you're the real deal. Like you've got some really cool, um, even just looking at your work history on LinkedIn. I mean,
Oh God.
lead developer, web developer at 343 Industries, and then you put Halo.
Yeah, Halo,
So
Halo
talk to us about
360. Yeah.
that.
Um. So I'm a nerd, and I remember at the time I was single and in Redmond, Washington, and so I was a web dev. I was doing web application security for Halo.com. And I remember being out with a couple of friends of mine, like a lawyer and a veterinarian and stuff like that. We'd be at the bar or whatever, and somebody would ask, like, "Hey, what do you ladies do?" And one of them would be like, "I work with, puppies." And like, "Oh, that's so great." And then, someone's like, "I'm a lawyer," and they're like, "Oh, that's great." And I'd be like, "So, I fist bump the Master Chief every day on the way into work," and it was like the culling of the gazelles at a water hole, like that, like elbows were thrown, and they weren't asking me out; they were asking me for job referrals. How do I get so cool? How do I get it? Oh no. It's the same as every job everywhere else where you're working on where a URL is your job title, which is to say, web application security is hard. Honestly, I didn't even really know at the time that's what I was doing. This is gosh, 15 years ago, I think. I didn't understand that I had been in information security. I think a lot of people don't. They work on securing systems and they're like, oh, I'm help desk 4 or whatever, or I work on community management. What you're actually doing is building out, sprocs that record data and permit, nudge behavior to try to stop people from doing shitty stuff in forums or whatever it is you're working on. Learned a lot of Ruby, but no, that was an interesting experience. I got that job at 343 because I had I had failed at a PhD program, and I had done a bunch of work in game theory, lots of work in game theory, in expected utility behavioral theory, cognitive behavioral theory, a bunch of stuff on why humans do what they do, doing a lot of agent-based modeling. And I ran out of money, and so I came back to the Northwest, and uh, God love him, the person I interviewed with didn't understand the difference between game theory and game design. So they hired me, and I spent like a weekend with learn Ruby in 24 hours, and then flailed until I figured it out a little bit. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of my background is sort of trying to say yes to stuff as much as I possibly can. I
Okay.
learned a lot of valuable lessons. But yeah,
I see you had a stint with Symantec. You had a
yes. Who
stint.
remembers test certs?
Oh man.
uh, yeah, everybody's got that right there. So they brought me in after that happened to engage in technical liaising with the information security community to build out really sort of like anti-fragile defenses against not hearing about that stuff again in future. So I was senior director of engineering there, and I ran initiatives um, that that reached out to people and engaged with the standards bodies that were extant, so IETF, CAB forum, stuff like that. I was the rep for Symantec for the Certificate Authority Browser Forum, that kind of thing.
You had a stint with Splunk.
Yeah, the red team and data privacy teams reported up to me there. So I was head of red team. Well, the head of red team reported to me, and the head of data privacy reported up to me, and I worked for the CISO there. Great boss. It was a huge learning experience. There was a bunch of reorgs that happened all the way through that organization. Shortly after, they reorged our organization. They had change of CEO, change of ownership, that kind of stuff. It was fascinating. I learned a great deal, and I learned that I like being the CEO of a tech startup. I love my
And
job right now. Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, speaking of being a CEO for a tech startup, I mean, you also have Red Queen Technologies.
That was my services company. Yeah. So for God, 12, 13 years, I was doing engagements with people. So writing policy, doing pen tests, had a raft of contractors and a couple of employees I would work with, and just sort of everybody's normal. I was an MSSP is the answer. That's what
Hmm.
that was. Hmm. Yeah.
And then let's see, New America.
That's the kind of like policy think tank sort of world that I exist in upon occasion. Sometimes I go over to Washington, D.C. and tell them they're doing shit wrong. Um, so
No.
yeah. So just some of the stuff I've done, like New America, I'm a senior fellow for global cyber policy at the Council on Foreign Relations. I do some stuff like that. And that's to bring a perspective sort of from on the ground in information security to the world of kind of ministerial development and acceptance of digital security and safety policy globally. And that is about taking um, the I do analogies basically. I'm like an analogist Olympian. So I come up with analogies to explain stuff to people, and they need that a lot in policymaking. Sometimes it's really hard for people to understand. Like I'll explain cyber warfare to a general, and I'll say, general, just because you can't see this thing happening in real time doesn't make it not real. You don't think that a hummingbird is animated by necromancy, do you? The wings are there. We know it's there. You have to slow it down enough to get a snapshot of what's happening, but speed it up, and that's the motion that's occurring and what's going on, right? So I'll use analogies like that to explain things to people. So yeah, upon occasion, I convene things and talk about stuff, and then a couple weeks ago, I was in front of the U.S. Senate's Department of Homeland Security Committee, the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, talking about the Cyber Safety Review Board, which is a body that was put together that's supposed to be like the NTSB for major cyber incidents in this country. And I was at Harvard as a fellow there several years ago, doing some work on this with like Adam Shostak, who's the director or who's the creator of threat modeling, and Rob Kanacki, who then went to go be the principal deputy director of cybersecurity for the White House. And we put together basically a list of instructions on how to put a body like this together. And then, like, our report comes out, and 6 weeks later, they were like, "Yeah, lol, nope," and put together a board that sort of um, was the opposite of what was going to make for the kinds of investigations that an NTSB would do, right? Like if you report an incident to the NTSB, they investigate. These are like dedicated people that come that have the respect and training in the aviation industry, and they put together these reports that lets the FAA come out with regulations that are meaningful that people have to understand. And I'm a student pilot too, so this matters. And so these folks really, they want the CSRB. Um, they've only investigated a couple of things. They were supposed to investigate solar winds. That's why Biden put them together. And they've investigated Log4j and Lapsus, which basically summarize as patch your shit and don't use SMS for MFA. So these are like really simplistic results, and pretty simple investigations, and they don't really do what we had hoped them to do. So the Senate wanted to know why this wasn't happening. So they asked me and a couple of other. They asked a trade guy, like a rep of a bunch of big tech companies, and then another great person, Trey Herr at the Atlantic Council, he's an academic, and they wanted me because I come from industry and from the community to come tell them why this wasn't working, and so we did, and it was quite an experience. Especially if you guys want to see it, you can go like Red Queen Dynamics has a YouTube channel, and we have that testimony up there. It's cut down, so it's just the portion that is the hearing as opposed to all the like gavel banging around it. And Josh Hawley pops up for like 20 minutes in it, going off on like AI at the trade rep sitting next to me. It was super weird. So if you want to see like weird, awkward, that was that. But it's pretty interesting. Government.
Well, you
Yeah.
you are a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience, and I thank you for coming on. MSPs, check out redqueendynamics.com. Get yourself signed up for a trial. It's a 90-day trial, and if you missed some of this video and don't understand why it's 90 days, go rewatch it so you can understand more. Thank you so much, Tara.
Such a pleasure. Have a wonderful day, folks. Looks like I'm already seeing some phone calls. So, Steve, excellent work. All right, here we go.
Happy
Thanks,
to
everybody.
help. Take care,
Have a
guys.